With every upside to a situation, there comes a downside. We teach our children to walk even though they could fall and hurt themselves. We send our kids to school knowing there could be a bully waiting for them. We teach our teens to drive and we lose our will to live. We're teaching our daughter how to drive. I love you, Bela. Upside. We go back to being parents, not Uber drivers. Well, for her anyway, Asher still needs us on call. The downside, people drive like animals and show little to no mercy for beginners. The first time Bela got behind the wheel, I was surprised that it took me 10 minutes to review what you do before you even turn the car on, let alone shift into drive. Which pedal is which? Can you see out your back window? And for fun-sized people like me and Bela, can you see over the wheel? I reviewed the different lights and indicators that help you drive as safely as possible. And once we got moving, I realized it was critical to warn her that no matter what she does, no matter how many mirrors she might have, she will always have a blind spot. There is no way to see everything all the time, especially when so much is happening on all sides and literally everything around you is in flux. When I gave Bela this morning, I swear I laughed out loud and said, like life. I told her you can be as careful as possible and alert as possible, but it doesn't matter. There will always be places around her she cannot see. Accidents will happen. Near misses will happen. I've lost Hummer SUVs the same way I've lost smart cars in my blind spot. The point is that blind spots are a built-in hazard. There is no getting rid of them, whether you are behind the wheel or navigating through life. As Bela drove in circles around a parking lot, I thought about how this was exactly what I wanted to talk about on Yom Kippur. During this holiday, we hear the word sin over and over. I don't like that word, and I never have. I can't connect with the word sin. It sounds so foreign to me and so damning. As we move through life, we make mistakes. We have accidents of all kinds. But sin? To me, that word is associated with punishment. And most often, it's intentional harm, a premeditated act of pain. And worse, if we sin, we become sinners, which connotes that we are irredeemable. As a Jew, that is the exact opposite of what we believe and the antithesis of this day. Blind spots, though, that I can connect with because they are universal and perhaps more crucially, they are inescapable. No matter how hard we try, we will let the important people, their feelings, and their needs disappear from our sight. We can do our best not to, but it's inevitable. This ironically gives me comfort. I feel better knowing that perfection is impossible, and as hard as I may try to keep others' feelings and needs in my sight, I will make mistakes, and I will lose them in my own built-in blindness. Today, during the Asham New Prayer, we beat our chest with a clenched fist when we recite all of the sins we have committed willingly or unwillingly. I admit to committing many of them, but this year, in my mind, this is what I said to myself. For the blind spot of jealousy, I ask forgiveness. For the blind spot of being unkind, I ask forgiveness. For the blind spot of apathy, I ask forgiveness. For all these blind spots, O God of mercy, forgive us, pardon us, grant us atonement. Oh, how I wish we had some sort of fancy computer built into our hearts and minds that set off bells and whistles to help us avoid hurting other people, like the ones that go flashing on our side mirrors or even on our steering wheels. Once I was driving my dad's car and started to veer off into the next lane. The seat started to vibrate, as did the wheel on the side of the car that I was headed for, and I actually thought I was having some sort of medical event. But it was the car telling me and warning me in every possible way that I was heading in the wrong direction and directly into the car in my blind spot. And I needed every single warning to get me back on track. Now, one of my favorite warning systems, and a perfect allegory for this day, is the way trucks let us know how to drive around them. On the back of many large trucks, there is a sticker that says, "If you can't see my mirrors, I can't see you." It's the automotive equivalent of the human out of sight, out of mind. So how do we improve? Where do we learn how to live deliberately, to live with those we love and those we need in sight and in mind? We come here. We sit together. We acknowledge our shortcomings as one people, and we go back again and again to the source of Jewish wisdom for the past 2,000 years. Our Torah portion for Yom Kippur teaches, "My Torah is right before you. It is not in the heavens that someone needs to retrieve it for you, or across the ocean that someone needs to cross it. It is in your mouths and in your hearts. It is imprinted in your minds." God knows us well, so well, that God built in warnings into the Torah about blind spots. I promise you they are there, but the problem is we don't take time to read them. Now, honesty, guys, it's Yom Kippur. How many of you have actually read your car manual? There's a few. I'll believe you. Now, I'm going to admit that my car manual is still like vacuum sealed in the plastic in my glove compartment, and I leave it there happily. Well, let me tell you something. The Torah is the Jewish people's manual for life, and many of us, we just leave it in the ark. But we need to learn more. Learning isn't just for our kids, it's lifelong. The Torah's got some good stuff in it too, and that's why we read it every year, and incredibly, we always learn something new. If you haven't yet begun to read it on your own or listen to it chanted, start solo or grab a partner, take a class, jump in anytime. The Torah has a very specific way of warning us about blind spots, but we need to read them that way. We need to see them that way. We read the thou shalt nots as sins, not things we would ever do, rather than seeing them as possible inevitabilities. Sure, not many of us are going to commit murder in our lifetimes, but if we are honest with ourselves, the other thou shalt nots, we've all done some of those. Trust me, I didn't mean to drive directly into my niece's car on her driveway and cause damage to the bumper, but I did. Just like I never meant to intentionally cause anyone pain, and I know I've done that too. The challenge we face every year is to read a thou shalt not, and then do a thou shalt. Thou shalt not put a stumbling block in front of the blind. We must actively remove them. Thou shalt lift up the fallen. Thou shalt not covet your neighbor's belongings. Life isn't about stuff, and for sure Jewish life is not about stuff. It's about people. Thou shalt honor your father and mother. Thou shalt not swear falsely. We must tell the truth to others and to ourselves. Being honest with ourselves might be the hardest. Thou shalt love honesty and integrity. If you sense that the liturgy on the high holidays is repetitive, it's because it is, because we need repetition. So this is also one of my favorites. How many of you completely ignore that light that tells you your tire pressure is low when it first gets cold? Okay, everyone, come on. I tell you I do, and talk about waiting for something to just disappear. If you have read the Torah or are a student of history, you know that people never learn anything the first time, or the second time, or maybe even the third time. So year after year, we return to this place to hear God setting off all the bells and whistles possible through the sound of the shofar. And it's okay, it doesn't make us weak or failures, it just makes us human. Since October 7th, I feel as though we have fallen into the entire world's blind spot. The fingers are pointed at us, and no one seems to understand our pain. We do not celebrate the deaths of our enemies. We know human life is precious and deserves dignity. We mourn their losses, while ours are not just ignored, they are sometimes celebrated. How is it possible that we have fallen so deep into the world's blind spot that we have seemed to have disappeared? We pray that soon we will once again be a light unto the nations, out in full view, feeling confident that we are strong and safe. And for some of us, perhaps the most difficult to deal with is admitting when we allow ourselves to go out of sight. We ignore our exhaustion and many times our apathy. Sometimes we must admit we hide in our blind spots because we think if we stay there long enough, our challenges will just disappear altogether and we can emerge without them. We hide issues of addiction. We ignore our abuse of others. We dismiss mental health issues like depression, thinking enough time in the dark will fix everything. If we have used this as a coping mechanism instead of facing our obstacles, hopefully the music and prayer and message of Yom Kippur will give us the strength and courage to reemerge and climb the mountains we need to climb. After today, I hope we all feel ready to stop clenching our fists and beating our chests for the blind spots we have fallen into. Instead, let's open our hands and our hearts and see ourselves and each other clearly and treat each other with a little rachmanis, little grace and patience, because change takes effort and change takes time. So I ask you to open your fists with me, cover your hearts with an open hand, and to begin to feel more confident in saying, for the clear vision to see the beauty of forgiveness, repeat after me, we will strive. For the clear vision to see ourselves as we are and do what is necessary to be the people we want to be, we will strive. For the clear vision of how we can help and not hurt, we will strive. I honestly never expected that teaching Bela how to drive would teach me so much about life, especially when I was hanging on for dear life. I love you, B, but it did. Now, every time we practice, we make sure to talk about all the things we see and the things we don't see, and just how crucial it is to know that both are important and always will be, and how we must proceed with caution in order not to hurt ourselves or anyone else. In 5785, I wish each of you a safe, happy, and healthy road ahead. Shana Tova.